Hi friends, welcome back to a See the Light art project. This art project is called Horsing Around, and we're going to be working on a project in the style of the great French Impressionist artist Edgar Degas. Now, for all of these art projects, you work along with me sequentially through lessons 1 through 4. This project will be a soft chalk pastel project, which can be a little messy. So make sure that you're prepared by wearing clothes that are okay to work in, or use an art smock or an art shirt to protect your clothing. Now, for lesson 1, today's, we just need a few supplies. You need some toned charcoal or pastel paper, and that means it's a color other than white. It could be any of these colors: blue, gray, taupe, cream, tan. You'll need a nice sharp pencil, a really good eraser, either a white eraser or a kneaded eraser. And that's it for today. Now, you will need some other supplies for some of the other lessons, and I'll get to that when we get to those lessons. But this is all you need for today, because we're starting off with the most foundational aspect, and that's drawing. Now, Edgar Degas came out of the 1800s in France, and at that exact time was probably the most famous and well-known era of art called Impressionism. You've probably heard of a lot of the artists from that time: Renoir, Monet, Sisley, Cézanne. And those were French artists that really felt that they wanted to experiment with how light and color varied depending on the time of day. And so it wasn't realism they were after, but their impression of that exact moment. And these artists spent a lot of time really stretching the boundaries of how classical painting was defined. Now, here's the interesting thing. Degas did not think of himself as an impressionist. He thought of himself as a classical realist painter. His very best friend was the American painter Mary Cassatt, and she was probably the one who brought Impressionism to the United States. Now, Edgar Degas was born of an American mother. She was a Creole from Louisiana, New Orleans, and a French father. But he grew up in France. And he was born into a fairly wealthy family. His father was a banker. But a tragedy occurred when he was 13 years old, when his mother died. And so his father and his grandfather became really the primary influences in his life. And because of the loss of his mother, his father felt so badly for Edgar, who was the oldest of the children, that he financed his way through art school, and also to set up a studio at the young age of 18 in Paris. So Degas really didn't have to work hard for a living, and he could spend a lot of time honing his craft as an artist. Now, because he spent time at the l'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, the most prestigious art school, he was classically trained. And so he really saw himself as someone who would focus on historical paintings. Now, historical paintings are paintings that recall famous stories out of history or the Bible or myths. And so characters that would usually be well known, and documenting really important battles or encounters, things like that. So he spent 3 years in Italy so that he could learn some more about historical painting, and he lived there with his aunt. And here's a painting I want to show you that he conducted. This was of his aunt's family, the Bellini family in Italy. You can see that very somber characters in this painting, very realistic portrayal of this young family at the time. But what Degas was a master at was composition, how he put the figures in the space to draw you into the picture. Now, here's another painting I want to show you. This is one of many of Degas' historical paintings, and this is called The Daughter of Jephthah. Now, the interesting thing about this painting is it comes from the Bible. This is from the book of Judges. The story is that Jephthah, wanting to be successful in battle, made an agreement with God. He said, "God, if you give me victory over this enemy, I will sacrifice to you whatever comes through my gate first when I return home." Unfortunately, when he got home from the battle, the first thing that came to greet him was his only daughter. And of course, Jephthah was aghast. "Oh no, Lord, my daughter? That's what comes through my gate first? My daughter, do I have to sacrifice her?" But he wanted to make good on his vow to God. And his daughter was willing to go along because she knew what a man of integrity her father was. Interesting story. And so Degas tried to capture the drama of that moment with Jephthah and his army coming up to his house, and the daughter and her friends coming out to greet her father, and all that went on in that composition. Pretty fascinating that he would choose that story from the Bible. Well, after he studied in Florence for a while, and then he came back to Paris, he saw the movement that was going on amongst all of his friends. He hung out with all of the Impressionists. They were a very tight-knit group. And he decided to move from historical paintings, which is what he thought he would focus on, to everyday life right there in Paris. That seemed to be what the people were more interested in, the people of Paris, the things that went around. And that's when he shifted into more of an Impressionist style. And so one of the things that he focused on was racehorses. You might think that's rather strange, but remember, Degas grew up in wealth, and racehorsing was only recently introduced to France, and he hung out with other wealthy people, and that was one of their hobbies, was going to the races. And so he wouldn't go to gamble, he would just go to sketch. Here's a really beautiful sketch of a horse from Degas from 1882. And notice how Degas has the start of one sketch, and then he changes his mind as the horse moves and does another sketch right beside it. You can find plenty of sketches that Degas did of horses in addition to his finished pieces. And the two things that Degas embraced and painted over and over in his life were racehorses and ballet dancers. You might think that's a strange combination, but think about it. Ballet dancers are muscular, athletic, but graceful when they move. Racehorses are muscular and athletic, but graceful when they move. And so Degas loved to capture movement in something that's still, static, like a painting. And that's why he embraced these two subjects. So for our project we're going to be working on, we're going to do a horse in a landscape in the style of Degas. And I hope that's exciting to you. It is to me. I know growing up, I used to draw horses all the time. And so it's exciting that we get to do this project together. So, how are we going to get started? We have to draw our horse in our pasture. And the way you start any drawing is with basic shapes. So, you have to observe. And so, whether you're drawing a book or a lamp, you observe the basic shapes that make it up, and then you move into details. Same thing with a horse. Now, we don't have a horse in the studio to study, but there are some basics I want to share with you that you can apply anytime you decide to draw any kind of animal, and for today, a horse. So the first thing you're going to do is place your toned paper. Now, mine is about 12 by 18. I would say no smaller than 11 by 15 for this project. And you're going to place it horizontally in front of you. And make sure your pencil's nice and sharp, because that gives you nice fine lines that you can more easily erase. And so on the left-hand side of our paper, you're going to make a square that's about 6 or 7 inches, like so. And this is going to serve as kind of the basic placement and framework for our horse. So once you have your square, it doesn't have to be a perfect square, like so. Now, in the upper half of that square, we're going to place 2 ovals, one slightly larger than the other. On the right-hand side, we're going to place an oval that lies horizontally, like so. And on the left-hand side, we're going to place an oval that's tipped at an angle, like so. Now, this larger oval serves as the basic framework for the chest of the horse, whereas this is the rear flank, okay, the back of the horse. Now, from those ovals, we're going to place a triangle that comes up at an angle from this right oval, right off of this corner. And I'm going to say it's not as long as the oval, and it's a triangle like so. Now, from these 2 ovals, we have to work on the core basic structure for the legs. And so you have to know a little bit about horse anatomy. So a horse's front legs come down pretty much straight, but a horse's rear legs actually bend backwards. And so we're going to make our lines for our horse. Now, I think for the placement of this horse, we don't want to just have the legs coming down perfectly straight. It's just kind of boring. So we kind of want, you know, when horses are grazing in a pasture, they're moving about trying to find a patch of grass that they like. So they might be in mid-stride or have their feet a little bit apart. And so that's what we're going to do here. So for this, right up here on this big oval, we're going to make our first leg. And so we're just going to come down. You're about a ½ inch in from the edge of your square. You're just going to make a straight line down, then a small oval, then another straight line down, then a small oval, and right before you get to the bottom of the square, you're going to angle forward like that. Now, this is the kind of the joints of the horse. Now for the leg that's on the other side of the horse, we're just going to have it come back slightly. So we're going to come, again, straight line, circle, or more like an oval, straight line, oval, angled forward, like so. Now for the rear legs, that's going to be something different, okay? So first, from this rear oval at the bottom where it tips at an angle, you're going to make a squat triangle, like so, coming off of this rear oval. So this rear leg here comes back at an angle, then you make an oval, and the rear joint here is called a hock, and then this lower part of the leg is called a shank, and that's a slight angle coming forward. And then again, the small oval, and then this little smaller bone is called a fetlock. So this is the hock, and the shank, and the fetlock. And so let's do another one, right? We have another leg, and so we're going to come down at an angle, the hock, the shank, and the fetlock, like so. So we've given our horse, in terms of this, just some basic structure. Now at the top of this triangle, in order to do the horse's head, you have a circle, about like that size. And then from that circle, you're going to make actually a square on its side or a diamond, like so. And this provides kind of the skeleton, if you will, of the horse. Now, a horse is a very muscular animal, so it's really important that we have those shapes before you start to work on the contours. But these are the basics, where you have the circle and the diamond, and that creates the head or the muzzle. This is the muzzle. And a powerful neck with this large triangle, and then the barrel chest, and then the flank. So now that we have the basic structure for our horse, we're going to add in the contours. Now the contours are the edges of a shape. You might remember that if you've joined me for art class. We talked about contour drawing very early on in Disc 1. We did contour drawings of an apple, and then we did that great project of a contour drawing of a shoe. Now, understanding how to do contour drawing is one of the foundational aspects of drawing. And so a contour is to really follow the outline or the edge, but it's a little bit easier when you have a structure to follow. So to do our contour drawing of our horse, we're going to start with the back. Now, the back of the horse dips down a little bit in the back, of course, where you would place the saddle, where the rider would be. So the first thing I want you to do is above this oval of the flank, you're going to come up, dip down between the two ovals, and then go up on the oval. So you see there's that little dip there, and that's that first contour. Now I'm going to be drawing darker than I want you to draw, just so it can be seen on camera a little easier. You want to keep your lines light. That's really key for any type of drawing until you're absolutely sure. You're going to keep your lines light. Now from here, we're going to go up for the neck, the muscular neck, and there's only a very slight arch to the back of the horse's neck, like so. Underneath, however, it's just pretty much straight right on there. Now to go around the head, we go around this circle, and you're going to connect around this diamond, and you're going to keep this circle shape underneath here, that musculature, come in and come around here, and at the front of the horse, like right up before you come around to this diamond, you're going to move just a little tiny bump that's going to be the nostril there for the horse. Now, one of the things that really defines a horse is his ears. And so at the top of the horse, right at the very top, we're going to make two very skinny triangles. And we're going to have one ear facing forward and one tipped. So it's what's going to happen is it's going to look like a V, like this. And so this ear is going to be like this, and this one is going to be behind it. Now the interesting thing, my friends, is if it was a donkey, you would make those ears much taller, and that's what kind of defines it. So you don't want to make them too big so it looks like a donkey. We want to make sure this looks like a horse. Now from the lower part of the neck, we need to come around and work on the legs. But they're a little tricky because they're bonier, whereas the rest of them is very muscular. So a horse has actually quite a muscular chest. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to bulge out a little bit here, bulge out a little bit, and then come in. And we're going to weight on the legs. And underneath here, at this part of the oval, we're going to do the barrel chest. And you're going to follow that oval and scoop back up a little bit, not way up to where the ovals connect, just a little bit to here to give the barrel up chest of the horse. Now let's go to the rear flank here. We're going to come around, and you see this triangle. You're going to come around to this triangle and come in. And now we're going to very carefully on either side of this line. This line serves as kind of like the bone, so you actually are fleshing out on either side of it. You're going to come around, but stay right on that oval, but on either side of the line, but then go right on the oval. Because of the muscle here, you're going to go wider than the triangle, either side of the line, but then right on the oval, either side of the line, right on the oval. And we're not going to worry too much right now about the hooves of the horse because of what we're putting the horse in a pasture, and he's going to be in tall grass, and we're not going to see them. So now for this leg that is behind this one that is seen here, just start right at that muscle and on either side of the line, then right on the hock, either side, right on the hock. And come down like that. Now, I think this is probably a little more muscular, so this is why you adjust as you go along. Now for the front legs, I'm going to put in a triangle here, just to the front leg, not the back leg, from the oval, so that I'm only a little bit above the knee, which is what it's called for the front leg. It's called a knee here, but a hock here. And go right around that kind of that knobby knee, and this is called a cannon, his front leg right here, and then his fetlock here. And then the one behind, we're not going to see it very well, but it starts off a little wider, comes in on either side of the line, wraps around the knee, like so. We're close, my friends, we're close. Now, one of the important things that I would recommend to any artist is periodically step away from your work. When you're used to seeing something from the same angle over and over, you don't see things you need to see. So throughout this entire project, there will be several times we're going to say, okay, it's time to step away. And that means you either stand up, set it up against a windowsill, ask a friend to hold it up for you, and you step away so that you can look at it. Does it look right to you in terms of balance? And are things even where they're supposed to be even? And especially when we get to the pastel part in terms of the way you layer color. When you're really close on top of things, it's hard to really see. And that's the cool thing about any Impressionist painting. How it looks far away versus how it looks up close. It's really fascinating. I hope you've been to a museum and you've had a chance to look at artwork that way, up close and from a distance. So now the other items we're going to put in are just some of the things that really define a horse, right? The mane and the tail. And so above the neck, the mane is the hair that grows right along that ridge line at the very top of the neck, right along here, but it does add volume. Okay, some, like a mule, his hair sticks straight up. His mane sticks up like a bristly type hair. But our horse has beautiful flowing hair. So right above this line where you have the neck, there's going to be just like a little line, and that's going to be the top of the mane. And so you're actually going to draw strokes that are like hair that come over the edge of the neck. And so they wrap kind of around that base circle. And you're going to stroke down, and as you move along the neck, they get a little bit shorter. But the mane also comes between the ears, almost like bangs. And so between the ears, you're going to put a few strokes for the mane. Now remember, it's not paint, so it actually adds additional volume up on top of the line you drew. And the tail, right out here, the horse's tail, he's able to move that tail so it doesn't just hang like hair. There's actually a little piece of a tailbone there. So you're going to come out a little bit straight out, and then you're going to bring the hair down, and it's going to go all the way down to his hock. Now, you're going to get more of this when we use the pastel, but this will create that placement for you. And so we have our basic structure of our horse. Now there's more definition that we're going to do. You could do it in pencil. You could put more definition of the muscular leg here. Some shadow, some over here, like so. We're going to be doing most of that with our pastel. Now, I'm not going to bother to put the eye in now or the nostril. We're actually going to put that in with the pastel later. But so see, we have our basic horse already drawn. What I want to do now is put him in a place and put a companion horse. So we're going to draw a fence at the edge of this pasture. And so I think I'm going to start at about, let's see, let's go below his tail at an angle on the left here. Just create a little line like so. And that line will continue, of course, behind him. And it's going to sweep kind of down to the right as if this is on a rolling pasture. So like something like that. And that's kind of the baseline at the edge of this field where then a fence is going to be. So now we need to put in the top part of the fence, and because this is in the distance and this is a little bit closer, it's going to very gradually get wider as it comes toward us. Not an extreme amount, just a little bit. So I would say like so here, and when you get on this side of the horse, the fence is just going to get just a little bit wider, not a lot. Now we're going to put in just a few upright fence posts. So these are the vertical lines, and we're not putting in a lot of detail. This is just to give us the core structure. Most of the detail will happen at the pastel stage. So let's start over here where we want to place them, and then we'll work backwards. Okay. So I think I want to have like so, like maybe every 1.5 inches or so on your paper, like that. You're going to make an upright line. And then when we get over here, they're going to appear that they're a little bit closer, like so. Now I'm just going to double that since it's a post. Just double that line. Notice I'm drawing very lightly. Put a little top on that. Now I already have the uppermost horizontal rail. So I'll just double that line very quickly. And notice I'm not drawing a continuous line. I'm treating each section as its individual, because this is probably a hand-hewn split rail fence, and so they aren't going to be the same width. They're not going to look the same. But I want a lower rail, so I'll add in very quickly a lower rail like that coming forward. Now the reason I needed to place my fence in is because I want to put a companion horse in there. And so he's going to be on the other side of the fence. And because he's further away, he'll be much smaller. So One of the things I want you to know with this project are some of the rules of atmospheric perspective, sometimes called aerial perspective. And that is, one of the rules is that the further things are away, the smaller they appear. So even if you have two horses that are the exact same size, he's closer, he looks bigger, this one's further, it looks smaller, right? So back here behind the fence, we're going to draw our second horse. And the way we're going to start that, I want this horse to be looking at us over the fence. So I'm going to see that horse's head from the front. So again, I'm thinking in terms of basic shapes. I remember here it was a circle and a diamond when I was looking from the side, okay? So if you imagine this is a sphere and this is a cube, right, what that would look like from the front. And so over here, just above the rail, I'm going to place a small circle, like about that size, and in front of it, the square seen from the front, like that. And that serves as the basic structure for seeing my horse head on. And I know he's got those two ears. I'm going to put a little V at the top, looks like a little antenna, and that's going to be my basic structure. So now I can make a contour of the horse, put in those little ears there, and I already can see that horse's head looking at me. Now what about his body? Well, I don't see him from the side, so I'm not going to see the whole thing. He is what we call foreshortened because I'm seeing him as his body goes back away. But I know that it's a muscular animal. I'm going to see just a little bit of his neck. I'm mostly going to see his the front of his body, so I make like a parentheses here. This one's coming out of the muzzle, and this one's here in the fence. But horses' legs are skinny and bony, so it's almost like wide at the top and then narrowing down to those skinny legs. So you can see how it's wide up here, getting thinner down here for the legs. And to parallel this curve, I'm going to make another curve that's bigger, that wraps around, which is like the rump of the horse seen in a foreshortened view. And then if I see the tail at all, it would just be maybe coming off to the side. So there is my horse in a distance in the pasture in a foreshortened view. That's probably all we need for today, friends, is just that elementary drawing to get us started. But my favorite tool, the eraser, comes in here. And this is where you want to erase the lines that you no longer need. So those structural lines, you can erase those. Which is another reason why you always want to draw lightly. And you only keep the lines that you need for when we move on to the pastel phase. Like I have this dark line underneath this mane, and I want the hair to show, but I don't want that line to show, his skin. I've always loved that about horses. They're beautiful manes. Sometimes you might go to a parade and you see how they dress up the mane, right, and braid it or do something with it. You know, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about the horse's mane. In fact, the horse shows up a lot in Scripture. Have you ever noticed that? So I want to share this verse with you. It's in the book of Job. Do you know the story of Job? Towards the end of the book of Job, God is having a long conversation with Job, and he's explaining why he is God and Job is not God. And there's this great passage, Job 39. Do you give the horse its strength, or clothe its neck with a flowing mane? Do you make it leap like a locust, striking terror with its proud snorting? See, God was trying to impress upon Job that only he was God. And he created everything in the world, knew everything about everything, every fine detail. And it was he who breathed life into every creature and controlled the destiny of the universe. Of course, Job knew that. But he just needed to hear, and we love to read, when you go through all those passages where God is going on and on, that you realize the power of God. How God is, there's no one like our God. And so that's just one small reminder of the qualities that he gave the horse. And we love the horse, right? A strong animal portrays such power. One picture, one of many of our great and powerful God. And so after you have done all of your erasing, you can go back, you can step away, and you can make adjustments that you need to for your horse drawing. And I'll see you back here for lesson 2 of our horsing around in the style of Degas.